I was here in 1991. I came to the University of Toledo as a student. Came from the little tiny town of Rising Sun to the big city of Toledo. I am not kidding. I thought it was the big city of Toledo because it had a building that was more than 3 floors high. So that was kind of cool for me. Came in here, didn't have a lot of experience with anything other than dirt clogs and cornfields. So I had a great experience here when I arrived. It was, the fact that Toledo had a beautiful art museum. I took advantage of all this stuff. And one of the first shows I saw was in this building. So it was a string quartet that was down in the recital hall, just right down the hall from here, and I thought it was gorgeous. And then the first play I ever saw was at the University of Toledo's Dorman Theater. Ever. I'm not kidding. I'm saying ever. First play was Our Town at the University of Toledo's Dorman Theater. And I was hooked. I was really hooked on plays and art and all that kind of stuff at that point in time. I didn't become hooked on musicals until much, much later, but it was a beautiful experience in that theater. It was old. The theater was old at that point in time. They hadn't redone it yet. And then a few years later after that, they did redo it, and I was very excited. So now that's my life story. Let's hear about yours, Matt.
Sure. Well, I just finished my 7th year teaching here at UT. I actually started off similar, living out in the country. I grew up in Texas and Kansas and Colorado and Iowa. It was a wildlife biologist in Montana working as a fire ecologist just outside of Yellowstone, but kind of conned my way.
That's what you were?
I was.
Oh, wow.
But I always wrote and made plays and ended up getting my MFA in acting in Chicago.
Oh.
And worked there as a professional actor, both at the non-equity kind of off-loop grassroots theater, but at top theaters like Chicago Shakespeare. I worked for the Second City and Bernie Salins.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then would do usually summer Shakespeare festivals. And then in 2006, I went to Wayne State in Detroit to get my PhD in theater studies.
We're talking to a doctor. I didn't know.
Oh, my
that.
goodness.
Well, a doctor of dress up and make believe. So I just go by Matt. But
you just take it seriously, Dr. Matt. We'll do that at least. How's that?
But I was at Wayne State when the recession hit in 2008, 2009, and so there was a lot of those professional theaters that were struggling, and they needed people who knew how to direct cheap, and people had been seeing. I've been doing productions of Shakespeare downtown in Detroit with homeless men, and they're like, well, call Matt. He knows how to do a lot with very little. And so I was able to get a lot of experience at equity theaters who needed to make lean and creative productions.
Right. So you were on the production side, not the on-stage side.
I've always acted when I've had to. So I haven't acted a lot lately. I wrote and acted in a feature, a WGA SAG feature last year. I had a touring production of Glass Menagerie that I directed that we performed in the bars. Tennessee Williams' hometown in Clarksdale, Mississippi, the bar where he wrote it in Provincetown. We performed in the bar of the Moscow Art Theater in Russia, and I played the bartender and played the gentleman caller at the end, and just ran all the cues from behind the bar as we got everyone pretty tipsy on bourbon.
So were you, when you were little, did you do this, or were you an on-stage person when you were younger?
Pretty the same. I was always writing, adapting, directing, and building my own projects.
What?
I'd use my science kits to create my own special effects.
Oh.
So I've the plays that I do in Chicago have often been, they're not necessarily experimental, but they're highly imaginative. I did an adaptation of Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, where we created all of the packing plants of that, turn of the century Chicago by using big rubber stamps carved out of that thick flooring you find like at Planet Fitness.
Okay, and rubber stuff?
Yeah, and so of a butcher block diagram, and we stamp it on end rolls that we liberated from dumpsters at big printing houses. And,
liberated?
and then they would butcher the paper stamps. And so
dumpster diving.
No, liberated. He said liberated. You know, they were just gonna.
And we were really good. Like we created We had a really good review in the Chicago Tribune once about this rain effect I created. At the same time, Steppenwolf spent $1 million on rain, and it only cost us about $5 because Costco had a really good return policy on sump pumps that we used. So, yeah,
you're like, it didn't pump very well.
Yeah,
We're returning all these pumps.
The generosity of Costco we've used quite a bit.
You used the term alchemy recently. You're a musical theater alchemist, creating magic.
Yeah. So I really love, Shakespeare has. So I've worked a lot in Shakespeare, and in many ways, Shakespeare.
You say you worked. Were you directing or performing?
All of it. Yeah.
All of it. Okay.
Yeah. I've worked on almost all of them except a handful, maybe 3 or 4.
Okay.
Like in those history plays or.
So if Ron wanted some private history or Shakespeare lessons, you could do it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I love teaching that.
You said you wanted to be King Lear, didn't you?
Henry V.
Oh,
I love
okay.
it.
My
I love
mistake.
it. I love it.
Wrong king.
Well, but the thing about people often think of Shakespeare as this highbrow, inaccessible art, but in its time, just like in the golden age of musicals, where it was cheaper to go see Streetcar Named Desire in Oklahoma than it was to see a movie. Shakespeare was the same way when you had those groundlings. And when you go into those texts, you see how much they have in common, particularly with Sondheim.
Gotcha. So you're saying like Shakespeare was the pop art of the time, that kind of thing?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
And particularly Shakespeare, we don't, only nerds like me have to read Marlowe or Ben Jonson, but Shakespeare was breaking the rules the same way that Mozart's operas were being played in Prague, for blue-collar people. And so I direct a lot of musicals, often for either companies who want to reimagine them or try to, because so much within the American theater, they're revisiting or creating a facsimile of what it was like on Broadway, and they want to see what could be inside this. So we did a Putnam County Spelling Bee 2 years ago, and try to strip away as much as we loved it, see what's there.
That's already a stripped away show, I feel like.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of ideas of what it's supposed to look like, and we wanted to go back and see what it is. What take away all the slime tutorials, take away from the interpretations from the cast recording, and see what are the bones on the page. And you find some really incredible stuff about loneliness and bullying and how to belong.
Oh, definitely.
And we were able to create something that people says, yes, that feels like the musical, but I never knew about the love, the heart, the relationships inside. And that's an approach we take on a lot of our work.
So that's the UT program summed up right there.
Yeah. We're often low on budget, but we're high on imagination and inclusivity. And we rely on a hyper theatrical imagination.
I like that.
Yeah,
hyper theatrical
alchemy. That's alchemy.
Yeah. Because as big of a budget you may have, we can't out Hollywood or out Marvel in terms of special effects. But particularly think of Henry V. The chorus is
Henry V. There you go.
Is inviting. So your imagination will eke out with your imagination the battlefields of France, and we hope that when people come into our classrooms, our learning spaces, and these performance areas, that those imaginations that we haven't played with so long, they can rediscover how powerful they truly are.
Cool. And what is this theater we're in right now? So we're sitting inside a very cool theater that I had never been in until today.
Yeah, so this is the Center Theater, and it's a
theater.
It's a highly adaptable space where everywhere around us can be a performance area. So we've had people up on those catwalks or up on, we're surrounded by stairs and platforms. We have very high ceilings here with an extensive catwalk, so we rely on lighting a lot to define these vertical spaces. A lot of the plays that I make, whether it's Putnam County Spelling Bee or Hamlet or our world premieres of things like All Quiet on the Western Front, where usually things are falling from the ceilings, the space is changing the same way as a character would, and there's usually a big mess by the end.
So Putnam County, you could have Jesus just coming down from the balcony.
Yeah.
Jesus!
We had we defined the back space here kind of like there was bleachers where the audience could sit, and there was a hidden banner like you see in high schools or whatever, that Jesus magically appeared. It was a pretty cool trick.
And we're talking 150 seats here, maybe?
Yeah, 150, 200 if we need, and we can provide on the second level. We can have some overflow.
Very, very close.
Oh yeah, that's like the little mezzanine right up there.
Yeah, but you're never further than 20, 25 feet from the action.
Right on top of them.
Seems like you don't need microphones and...
No, we try to train our actors to not need microphones, but because of our commitment to accessibility, we've been starting to use more microphones primarily for hearing assistant.
Nice.
So we have microphones available, but we're definitely focusing on trying. Back in the day when I was doing Shakespeare in the Parks, you might be in a place with 2,000 people and there's no vocal support, and you need to learn how to do that 8 shows a week.
Yeah. And there's nowhere for the, sound waves to even bounce off.
No.
It goes off into the woods and that's it.
Yeah,
it's gone.
Yeah, so you got pretty good at learning of how to support and sustain without losing the nuance, particularly in a text like Shakespeare. Wow.
And then you have monitors up on the wall too. So
Yeah.
Speaking of your accessibility.
Yeah, so for open captioning for our productions,
Nice.
we have a strong commitment to accessibility and inclusion here. So and this is very new. So
Yeah.
we've just had audio description where a young actor sits with people who are navigating visual impairment and describe.
Get out of town.
Yeah, almost like part playwright, post actor, and they're part of the whole rehearsal process because they need to learn the story, learn the rhythms.
You have one of your performers actually sit in the audience next to somebody and describe it.
Yeah, so
wow.
say they're saying, Susie comes across the stage right now, and you can see her face twist. So it almost comes like an audio
Is
drama.
it you? Because that was good. I like that.
No, we train a student to, and then we have the closed captioning up there, and then we will have sign language. We're going to be increasing our sensory sensitive productions.
It's becoming more and more just a normal thing for viewers to put on subtitles in movies now to understand them. I've been lazy watching Shogun. I'm tired of trying to read the whole show that's on Hulu. Yeah. I just put it on and it just talks to me.
Sure.
There's all this descriptive stuff, and I get to hear all of the, older gentleman walks across the stones. I'm like, I do have it on descriptive.
And are some of the performers, do you include, have you done shows like that?
Yeah, so we have what is known as Toledo Transition, where actors with disabilities can participate in our courses, and this could be any of our classes. All our productions are open to the community, so our auditions all year round.
Oh, really? The auditions too?
Yeah, all productions are open. So next year we have Silent Sky by Lauren Gunderson in the fall. That'll be directed by a guest director, Brian Sage, a professional equity actor from Detroit. We have our Festival of New Student Work in January.
We want to come to that one.
Yeah,
that's the one I want to come to.
Yeah, it's.
I missed it. That was one I was really trying to get to come and see. Was the Festival of New Student Work, and I was too slow.
And it's a real interesting laboratory where we want to make sure, like we said earlier, the best way to learn how to do theater is through the making of theater. And so the students are writing, directing, producing, designing, rehearsing, taking their big risks. And so sometimes it's really interesting, sometimes it's really earnest, but it's always big learning and big swings.
There you go.
There's that word risk.
Yeah.
That's something you're doing here at UT.
Yeah, because risks are free usually.
Oh, good point.
And the American theater, and this is one of the things that if you look in the fall, American Theater Magazine puts out a list of all the seasons for all the professional theaters, and there's almost always they have to take Christmas Carol off, and they don't put any Shakespeare on it because we're doing those same plays, often unfortunately in the same ways. And then every year there's probably the same 5 to 10 plays that are being done, whatever was popular on Broadway, and the regional theaters are often kind of creating a facsimile of that.
Facsimile of the Broadway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the design and the interpretation, the performance all look same.
Well, to be fair, also, not everybody can travel to Broadway and see the Broadway show, so they're trying to bring that experience regionally.
Yeah, and so those tours, that's a part of those projects, the tours. But because most of the world theater works under a very different model. where they are subsidized by the state.
Yeah.
They have budgets. But what we have is freedom, that we can take big risks, that we can incubate and subsidize new ideas I mean, I came from science, so we try to treat these spaces as a laboratory of human experience.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, like, one of the things, speaking of like doing things a different way,
Yeah.
and you mentioned Shakespeare, I've seen Macbeth done several ways.
Sure.
In one of my favorite Macbeths took place during World War II.
Sure.
And I thought that was the coolest thing. And it was completely different
Sure.
feeling because they had machine guns.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh.
and I've done a lot of those. Like, I've carried plenty of machine guns or different types of swords. You know, a lot of our approach is not only economical, but we think is, I would even argue, Shakespeare's original practices. You know,
Oh, yeah.
The reason that they were wearing tights and pumpkin pants was not because that was the costume, because that they were just wearing their clothes. And if you see the scant information we have of how they did the plays back then, you see a production of Julius Caesar, Titus Andronicus, they have the equivalent of their contemporary clothes with a juxtaposition of a toga on top. And so Shakespeare's quite helpful, comfortable with a theatrical reality rather than trying to force it in a historical reality. And so we are pretty ornery in our approach.
Unknown caller.
Uh-oh.
Is that me?
That's me.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
I forgot to turn off the. I
No
forgot
problem.
to do the turn off the
Bluetooth.
The Bluetooth there. So done. That's so funny.
But next spring, we're going to be doing a Midsummer Night's Dream with our students, hopefully community members, and
nice.
members of our
Midsummer's.
disabled. And it'll be a pretty creative approach to that.
You called it a jukebox show.
Yeah. Yes.
What? Where'd you see that at?
Yeah.
said it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't hear him say
Yeah.
that.
So we try to make sure that every season we pick a diverse experience of projects that will train our students. So after their 2, 3, or 4 years, and we're really committed to getting people out here as quickly and efficiently as possible, while making sure that they have the best learning experience. Mm-hmm. And so we're due for a classical play and a musical next year. And there's Midsummer. It's less musical than, say, Tempest or Twelfth Night. Mm-hmm. But there's an inherent theatricality. And so with our ASCAP license, which allows us to use music in our shows because we're non-for-profit and these type of things, we're going to be using everything from classical songs like Paper Moon, which makes a lot of sense when you think about Bottom and the play within the play. There's going to be a lot of Taylor Swift because she's always singing about moons and midnights and dreams. And
That's during Midsummer. I don't know what Paper Moon is. What's Paper Moon?
it's only a paper moon flying over a cardboard sea or whatever.
Okay.
So it's about would you remember me and believe in me? It's a song about imagination. But when we did Hamlet a few years ago, we know Claudius says, my nephew and my son. And he's talking about a little more than kin and less than kind. So we had Claudius coming out singing to Guns N' Roses' "Sweet Child of Mine" and a full on, but it really tracks. It really tracks. Yeah. And so we know that Shakespeare was doing the same thing, that they were using contemporary music of the day. We know that the plays were adaptable. Even in Hamlet, he says, "Hey, can we change the title and insert some new lines?" And if you read Hamlet from beginning to end, it takes 4 hours, but we know that the candles at Blackfriars only last 2. We know that from the preface to Romeo and Juliet, the 2 hours traffic of our stage. So those were living texts rather than these sacrosanct things. So yeah, we take some big swings on it.
Very cool. So that's you're doing that for the season. Well, I want to talk about what else you guys provide here, though, because for the people who didn't watch the video portion of this, I want you to break down some of the stuff that's going on. But obviously, everybody's going to watch the video too. But we're going to repeat a little bit here. So you have this main theater, but then you have the black box as well.
Yeah, we have our studio theater, which is a traditional black box, which is not only our primary acting classroom, but also a place where we can do any number of performances, particularly student-led projects. So we'll have play readings. It's a rehearsal space. We just had a new musical premiere in there that students wrote, directed, designed, acted, built from the ground up.
Yeesh.
So we really...
I was going to do that next week, but they already did it, so never mind.
Yeah, and they did it for a full weekend. We're sold out every night.
Oh, wow.
We do our performance finals, so we have this kind of accountability part at the end of each semester, which is a high energy, pretty enthusiastic party where people come and watch the projects and the pieces we've worked on.
You said most of your classes in that studio.
Yeah.
In the Black Box Theater.
Yeah.
How many students are part of the theater program here?
Great.
Is it a small group?
Great. So we have in the theater part of the Department of Theater and Film, we border anywhere between 35 and 50 majors.
Oh, that's more than I thought it was going to be.
And then we're open to any major in the university. So we have a lot of people who participate. We have even more minors.
Is that 30? Is that 50 for total or for class?
Total.
Okay. Yeah, okay, that makes more sense. Okay.
Yeah, and then how our curriculum works is it's designed to be very intentional. Not only as we have students coming in post-COVID who are learning how to go back to school again. Sometimes we have students who are often coming here from a high school where they were never either given a shot or they didn't have a theater department to take a swing.
Oh, hello, me.
And we love that. Like we understand that there's kind of an underdog mentality that they have everything to learn. But it's
amazing that they would even have it in their head that they would want to do this.
Yeah,
and coming from a place without that kind of.
We try to respect that courage.
Yeah,
and when you have everything to learn and nothing to unlearn, that's a pretty exciting experience. And we have a good track record. Like we've had multiple students go on to graduate school. We have a student at Northwestern right now. We've had a student at DePaul and when they come in their first semester, everyone, as we try to remove those silos that keep people separate of I'm a techie or I do this, everyone is in acting one together. And it's kind of a theater making course where you're learning about story and basic listening communication skills.
Oh, really? So the tech people would think that all they want to do is tech still got to sit through a class about theater storytelling.
Yeah, and the actors all participate in before the end of your first year. Everyone takes acting, everyone takes script analysis, everyone takes lighting and sound tech, stagecraft and costume tech. And then you are you can audition. We have students who are auditioning before they even start here coming from high school. You can act in the fall play and stage manage the spring play.
Right away, though. You can perform right away. You don't have to sit around and learn, and then when you're a senior, finally get to be in a show.
There's too much gatekeeping in the world as there is, so we try to make sure that people are given opportunities, that we're picking plays that maximize opportunities. We're trying to get in guest artists. So last year we had guest artists, everything from representatives from leaders of the Jewish community come in and lecturing about Diary of Anne Frank. We had a virtual tour of the Anne Frank house in Amsterdam. We had a contact improv, dance master class, singing for musical theater, interpreting the song master class, 2-stage combat master classes, offered free of charge so that people can come and really augment. We're not a BFA program, but we want to set people up for as professionals.
You say free of charge, like people in the community?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought these were just all for the students.
Anyway, University of Toledo, as an urban university, I think, I come from a land grant background, so I really love the service aspect of what we should be doing here in UT. And the one thing is that there's so few faculty members that we're probably not great at promoting how the resources that are here and the opportunities that are open. So, like we host the Thespian Festival, the high school Thespian Festival.
Yeah, I did know that.
Yeah,
I did know that.
And we want
Toledo School for the Arts. My kids went there. They were here all the time.
Yeah. And so when they come here, that way, those teachers know, those students know that. Say you didn't get cast in Beetlejuice or whatever's going on in the fall, you can come do a play here.
Do the thespians come into this room? So my kids have been in a room multiple times that I've never been in.
Yeah.
Great. Good to know. I hate them already. Those kids are so spoiled.
Yeah. But everyone's open. And then we have community members come in and act with us, and it's always open.
Oh,
and then you said you talked about learning a union stage.
Yeah.
What's that like
Yeah.
in the real world out there?
Yeah. So our lighting professor, Steven Sikowski, is a member of IATSE. He's a leading, award-winning lighting designer, not only in theater and film, but doing huge spectacles, NBA All-Star Game, big award shows, big concerts.
Man.
So he often will lead students doing either overhire at union houses. He's a resident designer for the Purple Rose, so he's one of Jeff Daniels' designers.
Overhire, what's that?
When you come in to hang lights for a big event, get lights focused. So he trains them so they can work on union crews.
Why is it called overhire? I don't understand.
Because you have a core member of the team and you need extra hands. So like say a big show's coming into...
Okay, so these are extra hands that come in for particular shows, and he handles getting overhired.
Yeah.
That means he has to get the extra bodies.
Yeah, getting them trained.
Thank you.
He led a trip up
Using
to...
shop talk, and I didn't know it.
Sure.
I'm like, what? Is that?
But your UT students are learning this.
So they're the overhired. The kids can come up there and be paid to learn.
And so they'll accompany him to DC on an NBA event. They get streamlined into Cedar Point, where often our students will start in May at a low tier, and there'll be a stage manager or an audio tech head by June.
Yeah. I worked there for 4 summers too, so I can vouch for the starting and then working your way up fairly quick. It's amazing if you just work hard how fast you can climb.
So we have a number of people who are costume characters, audio tech. I'm a member of the WGA, the Writers Guild of America East. We even when we were on strike, the students would often listen to the meetings while we were on strike last fall, so they could learn about professional expectations as a writer.
So when they come in, like first class, first semester, they're doing stuff right away. They don't have to be eased into like here's the history of theater classes, stuff like that.
You take a theater history course.
I did nail it.
But that's in the it's scheduled. How the curriculum works is we want to make sure that there's high impact, those classes that you're really excited about, and keep the cohort together, because we know that not only this generation, but theaters are often refuges where people with big imaginations, but sometimes their own stories are complicated or hurting, that we want to make sure that there's community and ensemble around our learners at every step, and that they're always, if they're taking history of astronomy, that there's also a class that's investing in their imagination. And so we believe that classes like theater history are very important, but as someone with a PhD who's had to sit through a lot of those boring ones, we want to make sure that anything that we teach theoretically has an impact on practice. That if we learn about the traditions and tools of the past without putting them into practice of telling better kick-ass stories now, it's just empty.
There you go. I agree.
Yeah. So where we put theater history is in the spring of your sophomore year, and then everyone takes directing, which it kind of mirrors acting one in the fall of their junior year, and has a very practical component.
Everyone takes directing? Again, okay, so I need to parse some of this out here. So you come here as a performer, or do you come here as a theater major?
There's 3 tracks.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's an acting for the stage and screen, which is really unique. There's a design tech management, and then there's a generalist track. But no matter what, everyone takes a spine of courses. There's a significant choose your own adventure of the other classes you take. So for example, we have a young man who was a design tech major, but he had enough, and as a design tech major, he still starts out in acting 1, takes all the design courses, upper level design courses, and directing, but also elected to take voice and movement because it would train his ear. Took Shakespeare because he wanted to learn the language, so if he had to design and call it, he would know it. And in the same way that we will have, and took playwriting, or we'll have a generalist who wants to kind of do everything. And so we're not going to put someone into a box. You get to change as you start to find. We're not going to arbitrarily force people into areas they're not interested in. If you really love stage managing, we're going to get you those opportunities, but we also we're going to challenge you. So like we have a really great young stage manager, and she's going to work with the guest director. So she gets to have a new experience of learning how to run a rehearsal with someone new.
That's what I was wondering, because you had mentioned dance. I heard you say the word dance.
Yep.
I hadn't heard you say the word singing or vocal until just now, too. So they all have vocal classes that they have to take every week, and dance every week, and all that good jazz.
Yeah, so we have an introduction to dance, which is ballet based. Well, I can slide back here. So a lot of how we teach this is heavily informed. For years, I would travel to the Moscow Art Theater School. So
in Moscow,
in Russia. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the ground zero for actor.
You haven't been there in a while, probably, though, right?
Not since the pandemic.
Not since they became Russia again, basically.
Yeah. It's been pretty complicated.
Yeah.
But I was taking students every year for 12 years.
Wow.
And while you're there, it's a pretty intense 6 days a week. You get to school at 8, you're not done till 6, and then we would go to a play every night and not get home till midnight or so. And they're doing ballet, vocal training, circus training, and
you were living the dream, man.
Circus.
I bet you loved it.
It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And here we know that rather than we can't necessarily do that model, but our students are able to take dance, they're able to take vocal lessons in the music department, and then we want to make sure that because we are limited both faculty time and space, we try to make sure that our productions have enough space for that training and learning. So our vocal coaches and musical directors are heavily involved. There's significant time to make sure that we're building capacity, and that our co-curricular, whether you're a designer, actor, stage manager, you are putting into practice what you're learning today when we come into this space, so that when you move to Chicago, New York, Seattle, Minneapolis, you're able to hit the ground running. And that's proven to be the case.
Man, so this has been great. This has been a learning experience for me.
Yeah, my opinion of UT theater has just skyrocketed.
I had no opinion.
I had no idea.
I had no opinion at all as what was going on. Like I said, the only thing I seen was a show here in the 90s and a couple maybe other shows. And so I didn't know what to expect. I just didn't. I mean, I live right next to you guys. I live right down the street, and I still didn't know enough.
And we needed, a lot of that is trying to build an audience and making sure that people know what's here.
Yeah.
Is incumbent on the department. We're really working on that.
It's still the University of Toledo. This isn't some little rinky-dink college. It's the University of Toledo.
And it's about time we got around to having them on here, too.
And hopefully we'd love for you, if you want to ever come watch a rehearsal or have that conversation.
Would love it.
I think we're really excited about what we're doing next year. The Festival of New Student Work is innovative and exciting. I think the Midsummer Night's Dream
sounds great.
Particularly if you don't like Shakespeare, we take his plays incredibly seriously, which allows us to do some really crazy things with them. But it's not weird for weird's sake. It's earnest. It's investigated. You're going to learn the story in an exciting way. And so, we hope that people come check it out. And the tickets are affordable. And the same way we're trying to remove those barriers in terms of accessibility, if money is ever an issue, we're easy to find, and we can remove that barrier too. So.
Nice. You were very accommodating to us.
Good,
extra accommodating, considering I messed up the time that I was supposed to come here, and you were just like, hey, man, no problem. And I was mortified. I was like, I cannot believe I missed the time. And you were like, don't worry about it.
It's just fine.
You're too nice.
It's always fine.
You're too nice. So I profoundly thank you for being gracious with my dumbness.
Theater is a family, and so you can't be cheap with the people that you get to collaborate and work in community with. So.
All right, man. Thank you for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, bye.